let's take a look at our top selections.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with a look at the first of two stakes races for New York breds on the Saturday card at Belmont Park. Race number 6, a couple of Stallion Series races there for the New York breds. The 6th race is the filly division, the Cupecoy's Joy, 7 furlongs, Widener turf course, field of 11. Let's take a look at that field right now. You can see there the morning line favorite, number 10, Ava's Grace. Big class relief for this filly by the New York sire Lauban. That's why she's eligible for this race. You know, a filly who's never run on the turf before, so that's your big question. If she handles the turf, Ava's Grace is going to be very, very difficult for this field to beat. Already 2 times graded stakes placed in her career, once as a 2-year-old, most recently in her first route attempt as a 3-year-old at Belmont Park in the Fantasy, where she earned a big 87 by her speed figure. If she runs a race like that, in this kind of a race, there's just no way that this field's going to be able to beat her. She does have to transfer her good form over to the turf. We'll see if she can do it. If she does, she's probably going to win. Second choice on the morning line is number 3, Shaker Shack, also a filly who has never run on the turf before. Just won the Park Avenue division of the New York Stallion Series back in April, sprinting on the main track. She will now try to sprint on the turf and pick up a second Stallion Series win. And we'll see if she can do it. She has a little bit of turf pedigree. Let's take a look first at the Timeform US pace projector for the race, because Timeform US believes that this race will be run at a fast pace. And not only that, they believe that the 2 favorites on your morning line, the 2 horses switching surfaces for the first time, are going to be part of that fast pace. Shaker Shack is a fast horse. She's the 3. They have her on an early lead in this race. The number 10, Ava's Grace, up close to number 9. Another horse trying turf for the first time in here, Lot of Honey, also up close to the pace. Lot of Honey's only run twice. Just broke her maiden in her most recent start in a race that was rained off the turf. She was entered main track only that day. Wound up getting the job done with a 69 by her speed figure. We'll see how she handles the switch to the turf and the big step up in class here. Let's just start talking about the 2 favorites in here, because again, I really do feel like Ava's Grace, it's pretty obvious if she's going to manage to transfer her good form over to the turf, then she's just going to be really, really hard for this field to beat. She's also going to be a very heavy favorite in this race, so if you don't think that she's going to be able to do that, maybe you want to take a shot against her. We'll see how she backs up that Fantasy last time, where I thought she ran fine. Obviously, it was a step forward for her. Easily had the best speed in that race, got to the early lead, basically loose, without pressure, all the way around to about the top of the stretch, then just driving from there, and no match for the winner, Pauline's Pearl. Never looked like Ava's Grace was ever going to hold on in there, but all in all, pretty good performance to hold on for second at the end. Again, the 87 by her speed figure just suggests that she's going to be tough in here. It'll be interesting to see what she does, because Lauban, her sire, I think the jury's still out as to whether he's going to wind up being an effective turf sire or not. He certainly had some horses that feel like they can handle the surface, so maybe ultimately they're just going to be fine on the turf as well as on the dirt. Not a ton of turf pedigree on the bottom for Ava's Grace, but maybe enough to handle it. Her dam has had 3 prior foals to try to turf. Those horses are 0 for 8 combined on the surface, but it's not like they couldn't stand up on it. A couple of them have actually run fine and hit the board a couple of times. So we'll see if Ava's Grace handles it. She's going to win this race. The other favorite on the morning line, Shaker Shack, is just a horse that I don't like that much. Not because she isn't bred to handle the switch to turf. Bustin' Stones, her sire, is actually a very underrated sire of turf sprinters, and Shaker Shack herself is a sister to a horse named Oak Bluffs, who has won 17 times on the turf in her career. So, there's a chance that Shaker Shack will transfer her form over, but I feel like she not only has to transfer her form over, she just has to run better than she's run in any of her dirt races to beat this field, and she's got to do it going 7 furlongs. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Shaker Shack, and I don't want to take anything away from her for her recent win in that Park Avenue, which we referenced earlier. Let's take a look at the stretch run of that race right now, because Shaker Shack, runs fine in here. She got a good trip keeping up on the pace all the way. You see the runner up there, She's a Dirty Dancer, who's also back in this race on the turf. Took a run at her around the turn. They sort of hooked up a long way out, and they just dueled through the stretch in here. At the end of the day, Shaker Shack is just better, puts that horse away finally, and is clear at the end. There's no closing going on behind these 2 horses. I don't know, it's just not a race that I was blown away by. Shaker Shack, has been in the exacta all 4 starts since she's come back off the layoff this year. She's either been first or second. She's run fine in those races, but she has to improve, and I think she has to improve by quite a bit to beat this field. Taking a look at maybe some of the other horses you might want to take, consider if you're trying to beat the favorite. Number 6, Big Time Lady, I think could be one of those. Sort of a tale of two campaigns for Big Time Lady so far. Switched to turf finally at the end of last year. Got rained off a couple of times. Finally got on this surface last October in a race over this Widener turf course at the 7 furlong distance. Big Time Lady, ran fine that day to break her maiden first time on the grass. She got an absolute perfect trip when she won that race. But it did feel like she improved on the grass. She came back for her only other start as a 2-year-old in November and actually ran really well in the Tepin against open stakes rivals. Overcame a little bit of a stumble at the start, got to the lead in there. Ultimately was no match for the 1-2 finishers in the stretch, but all in all, a fine performance for Big Time Lady to finish third in that Tepin 72 Beyer speed figure. So it felt like maybe she was going to come back this year and be on her way and be a factor in races like this. And maybe she still can be. She's run twice so far this year and hasn't run as well as she did in that Tepin at the end of last year. Both times so far this year, they put her right on the lead, contested the pace both times, and just really didn't have anything in the stretch. Finished 8th in both of those races. The last time we saw her was on Belmont Stakes Day, June 5th. Right after the Belmont Stakes, they went a mile with her. Went to the lead in there with Louis Saez. It felt like Louis was trying to take a little bit of a hold over there to get her to rate. Ultimately couldn't do that, just let her move along on the pace. She took a little bit of pressure up there, got challenged in the stretch and was just no match through the final furlong. Saez just sort of wrapped up on her and let her fall back out of contention. She didn't run that well in there. I'd be willing to give her another chance at the right price in here. I also wouldn't mind to see Johnny Velasquez, who takes over here, maybe try to get her a trip more like the one she got when she broke her maiden. Don't put her on the lead this time. Sit in behind, maybe get her covered up a little bit and see if she can, do a little bit better that way. Either way, she just has to turn things around from her first 2 starts so far this year. I don't think that's impossible, and it feels like she's going to be a good price in here. Christophe Clemont has 2 runners in this race. The 4 Sport Model is not one that I like that much. Sport Model switched to turf 2 starts back in April. Actually got in behind horses on the turn, clipped heels and fell. But it feels like she was no worse for wear after that incident because she came back on relatively short rest for her next start, also for maiden 40, and got the maiden win and did it pretty easily in that race. I gave her a little bit of credit for that race, if only because it felt like for a $40,000 maiden claimer for New York Breds, that race was actually run at a pretty good pace. And Sport Model was able to keep it in range, got a huge seam to open up for her in the stretch, drove on through, and was just way better than that field. Won it pretty easily at the end with a 67 Beyer. I thought she ran fine. Didn't make me want to bet her back in a race like this one. Her stablemate Proper Grammar, the 2, I feel like maybe Proper Grammar could be a horse who could take a step forward in this race. She's only had 1 start so far, also for the maiden 40. And I thought she ran well that day. I don't think she beat a very good field. I just like what Proper Grammar herself did in that race. Got herself to move up in behind the leaders around the turn into a really good spot. At that point, she was sort of trapped over behind the pace setter through the stretch with a rival right alongside, not letting her out. So she just sort of held her position until she could push her way off the inside. And once she did that, I like the way that she finished that race off. Just was much the best at the end in there. I thought maybe there was a chance she could improve in this race, and it's I just didn't feel like the 7 furlongs of this race was going to affect her at all. So maybe she's a horse you want to consider. I'd want more than the 5-1 morning line, but we'll see where she settles. The horse that I will try to beat the 2 favorites with is the 1 Show Me the Honey. This is a filly who's making her 3-year-old debut off the layoff here. We'll just see what she does here. She's going to have to be ready to get the 7 right off the bench, and that could be an issue, I suppose. But she did win as a first-time starter last year as a 2-year-old, and I really liked her career debut last October, going 6 furlongs here at Belmont Park. We got the replay of that race right now. This filly didn't break great in that race, wound up sort of back off the pace, but Kendrick Carmouche actually gave her a really good trip. He stayed over towards the inside with her. You see as they come to the top of the stretch, she has a rival right there to her outside. She got bumped by that horse, and that horse just sort of leaned on her a little bit, forced her over to the hedge. But she kept running through it, and then once she finally gets clear there, right about the 8th pole, she gets herself fully clear, and I like the finish she puts in. The final furlong of this race, she comes with a really good run and wins this race really easily. I mean, she's basically ridden out at the end of this race. I liked her debut quite a bit. Came back a month later to try Open Company in the Stewart Manor, where she finished 4th, beaten over 8 lengths. But that's just not a race that I care about that much. It was just a race that was absolutely dominated on the lead by the winner, who got to the front. There was basically no passing from anybody at any point in the race. Everybody just sort of took up a position and held it. I just don't really care about that Stewart Manor for Show Me the Honey. She's been laid up since then. Comes back. I feel like there's a chance she could take a really nice step forward in this race. And, if Ava's Grace for some reason doesn't handle the turf course, I don't think she even has to improve all that much. Obviously, If Ava's Grace turns out to be proficient on turf, then Show Me the Honey's not going to be able to beat her. But at 8-1, I will try her on top. I'll play her with the favorite, maybe in some exacta savers if she's around that 8-1. Because Show Me the Honey is really the only other horse in the race that I was interested in. I put her on top. I went 1, 2, 10, and 6 in race number 6 at Belmont Park on Saturday. It's the Cupecoy's Joy division of the New York Stallion Series. The approximate post time is going to be 3:34 Eastern Time. Good luck.